Hello, everybody. Welcome to I guess this is the Kyle Suck Show, technically, but it's really a preview of a movie that's going to get us in a lot of trouble. What do you think, Jackie?
I think it's going to get us it's going to get us in a lot of trouble.
I
I'll try to speak carefully so I don't get you kicked right off of YouTube.
Well, I'll tell you what. The good thing about that is that we're actually on Rumble right now, live, and Facebook. Okay. So I can kick those two off, and we can go into Rumble. So if you can't see us, hop on over to Rumble if it gets too hot. But for the next hour, we're going to we're going to talk about the film. It's called What is a Woman? It's Matt Walsh. Jackie, you've seen the trailer. I have not seen the trailer. I kind of want to be fresh. I did see a little bit of snippets just a minute ago. It looks very interesting.
Right. So, Matt Walsh has been sort of focused on this subject. I think it's probably one of his pet causes. I think he wrote a book, right? Do you know about his book that he wrote about something like a walrus isn't a what? It's something to do with this. Just because you claim to be something doesn't make it true. So this trailer was very interesting. I watched him speak to a lot of people. Some people got highly offended. He was interviewing someone, they didn't say it was, but it was obviously a person of note that represents an organization. And they said, this interview's over. And, they pulled their earpiece out and they read it and they got ready to walk off. And he said, are you saying you're not having a good time? So it was kind of funny. But, Matt Walsh does have a good sense of humor. But, I think the question, and I watched Ben Shapiro today, and he talked about this subject. The question is, what makes you a man or a woman, right? So Ben referenced this BBC article. He said article, but I guess it's in written form, obviously, where a woman went home with a man that says he's a woman, and he ended up raping her. But the article changed the woman's words, the woman who was raped, to say, instead of he, they changed it to they. So now it looks like they raped me. So all right. So first, we're not even making sense. One person, not multiple people.
Right.
And then second of all, that's actually a whole nother big controversy, which I watched somebody on Tim Pool. So lesbians are getting in trouble because they don't want to date people with penises. But if a person with a penis says they're a woman, then it's transphobic or it's bigoted to say that I can't, I don't want to date you because you're not really a woman. Like, they've backed themselves into such a corner at this point. I don't even know how any of us can make sense of it.
They really have. And I have been kind of shying away from this topic for the reasons, as you mentioned earlier. But just a minute ago, a guy named Ethan, he's actually in Great Britain. I spoke with him a lot, but until my Instagram account got kicked, I really hadn't been in contact with him. But he's here now, and we've had several shows with him and even with Nicole talking about the subject matter. And he's really knowledgeable on this. And what's going on in Europe is really crazy. And I don't know. Here's the thing. They open up a can of worms so much in this, because once you cross that line, then you're going to offend literally everybody, because no one really has a clear definition of what is what.
True. And actually, Ben brought up a really good point, which so first of all, I think these trans activists are really kind of bumping. First of all, they're bumping gay men right out of the picture. Do you know, for this year's Pride Parade in New York, the committee is 4 people. So it's 3 trans and a lesbian. There's not even a gay man running the gay Pride Parade this year. And I think that shows you how far it goes. But Ben's point today, which was very interesting, was the whole thing. And if you're old enough, and both of us are, to remember when gay rights, became a thing, and we all got kind of sensitized to the way sometimes gay people were treated, obviously wrong. But the whole thing was, they said they were born this way. It wasn't their fault. They were born this way. And Lady Gaga has a whole song about being born this way. So if you apply that to trans people, they in fact were not born that way. So is it innate? I mean, if you went along with their theories, is it innate and biological, or is it more whimsical? And this is how I feel, and that old song, my truth. You know, the thing about my truth is always there is no my truth. There's the
Right.
truth. So I just think, as I said, I think they're backing themselves into a corner where there's no logical argument.
Right. Yeah, it goes into a litmus test of all sorts of questions that can't be answered. For instance, I remember a couple of years ago, there was a question of people who converted over to either or, where the sex that they transferred from don't want to date with them, and they're calling them transphobic. Because if I'm a guy, or let's say I'm a guy, I transitioned to a person with female parts, and now I'm wondering why other men don't want to be with me. And it can't be because of what I did to my body, but it's because they're transphobic.
Right.
And that
Or
to me,
how about the
that
fact that a lot of people aren't getting the surgeries. So they demand to be called a woman or a man when in fact their body parts are not representing what they say they are. So, I mean, I'm a nurse. So I really have to go to the medical. And Ben has talked about, and there's been other instances where people go to the hospital sick. They say they are the sex that they think, they want to be, but that's not their true sex. And then they actually have had some bad medical outcomes because, like, people didn't know they had ovaries because they said they were a man, or we didn't know they had testicles because they said they were a woman. So, I mean, I am so, listen, if you want to call yourself whatever you want to call yourself, I don't care. But when it push comes to shove and you pull down your pants, that's who you really are. You can't put a dress on yourself and say, now I'm a woman. If you're just not. And I think that if any of your female listeners, it's really kind of offensive. Of course it's offensive with the men that say they are women taking over the sports. But even aside from that, when Bruce Jenner transitioned into Caitlyn, and everybody was like, oh, magnificent, brava, she's so brave. And she won Woman of the Year when she was a woman for 5 months. Yeah. And Dave Chappelle does a funny joke about that, well, I got, beat all you tired old broads out. You've been women all your lives and you weren't Woman of the Year. But this person who's been a woman for 5 months wins Woman of the Year. And another thing that I feel quite strongly, if you haven't been through the physical, let's say, suffering of a woman, cramps, all the things that go along with that, then that really shapes your character. If you think about that, from when you're 12 or 13 years old till you're 35 or 40, every month having this thing that happens to you that you have to make arrangements for and deal with. And then, there's birth control issues and there's gynecological doctor visits and all that. If you haven't had that, then I'm sorry, you don't get the woman card, because that's a big part of it. And it definitely shapes your personality and it shapes who you are.
You raised a really good point, Jackie. I hadn't even considered that. I hadn't considered not only, of course, the 30-day, we know that, right? But the whole thing that goes along with that, the doctor's visits, the psychological, the changing your schedule, things I had never even considered.
It's a big pain in the neck. And, Dave Chappelle tells another story about that. And he really gets it, which is he couldn't understand, I guess, why women are always fearful. So, my whole life, I'm not super fearful, but you take precautions. You're careful in the dark. You're watching. You're even like when you're out of the club, you have to hold your drink in your hand because somebody could put something in it. So we're always on the defense. But he said he realized being a woman was like him walking around with a backpack with $20,000 in it all the time. Wow. And you get that because women have a $20,000 area that they have to protect and they have to make sure. And sometimes people like to take their $20,000 by force. So you've got to be on point. You can't put yourself in certain positions. That's in the back of your mind. And that's another big piece that I think shapes your whole personality and your whole character, just knowing. And it's not even like you wake up every day and say, I got to take care of myself, but it's just something you're always on alert for. You're always wary of. You're just always thinking about it, going to your car late at night, whatever it is, that's always part of you. And if you don't have something like that you have to protect, I don't think you can really understand what it's like to be a woman.
In the 90s, there was a T-shirt that was out. It said, "It's a black thing you wouldn't understand." And you know how liberals love to say they love black people. We love black people. But what's the difference between a white person in blackface identifying as a black person and winning an Oscar for being a great black actor?
You tell me. That's a very good point. And I never thought of that, but if I don't understand what it's like to be black, then how do you understand what it's like to be a woman?
And that's where I'm getting at. See, it's a double standard of the nth degree. And not only that, we're talking about wokeism, which not just this topic, it's every topic in wokeism. It's a law of diminishing returns because you're alienating more and more people. At the start of the show, if you guys didn't mention it, do you repeat what you said about in the beginning about how the parade and how they were alienating, I guess, men or gay men?
Well, the gay men are like out. They're not even part of anything anymore. I was saying the New York Gay Pride Parade, which I think what might have been the first national, big pride parade, if not the first, and certainly the second. And this year, the committee to run it is 3 trans people. I don't know if they're, men that are women or women that are men, but 3 trans people and a lesbian. There's not even a gay man on the committee that runs the entire parade. And it's just funny because I also think that most gay men, I'm a girl that lived in New York for 15 years. I know a million gay men. I think most of them would just sort of like to think of themselves as, I know plenty of gay couples. They're quiet. They're normal. They live a normal life. And I think all this trans stuff is really just it's just displacing them. It's displacing what they are and just latching on to all their causes and all their and identifying. And now everybody says LGBTQ parentheses exclamation point minus sign. I mean, it is ridiculous the things they keep adding on.
And to that point, let me finish that segue there, because I wanted to first get you to say that about how they're alienating gay men. It sounds like it's going to get a smaller circle. What's happening is law of diminishing return. The more people you alienate, the bigger that base gets. And guess what? You're going to be the minority in a short time. And so I don't think this is sustainable at all. They're going to have to come up with some kind of definition. Hopefully this film can kind of underpin some of that to say, hey, come on, guys, can we sit back and get some definitions here about what is a woman?
Well, it was interesting because a lot of people couldn't say, and we had that, who was, was a Supreme Court justice. She couldn't say what a woman is. But what was interesting, and people didn't latch onto that, was she said, I'm not a biologist. So what she was saying was, it's a biological thing. I mean, really, that she didn't say, I'm not a psychiatrist or I'm not something else that would study the mind. She said, I'm not a biologist. So she was admitting that it's a biological basis. That's what's the basis of gender. And I mean, facts are facts are facts. And Ben Bright brings this up all the time, and other people do. Don't ask me to participate in your delusion. As I said, I was on a committee in New York, NAMI, which is the National Association of Mental Illness. And it was, very interesting or whatever, but there was a woman that was running this particular meeting, and she was, it was a man, completely, they looked like they had no hormones. So it was a man that looked like a man, but dressed in a lady's suit with a very lovely wig, pearl earrings, very prim and proper. And the meeting was fine, but that was a man. And nobody, I would have called, I didn't have to call on that person, but I would have called them whatever they wanted to be called. And to me, that's like the old fashioned, remember how we used to call it drag. People like to get dressed up in drag. That's what we used to call it. But no, you're not, you're a man, my friend. God bless. I'll call you whatever you want to call me. But if we go in the doctor's office, or if I have to testify in the Bible, you're a man in a lady's suit. I don't want to offend anybody, and I don't think like Matt Walsh or other people, we're not trying to hurt people's feelings or cause any, and I don't wish them any hatred or any ill will. I don't think we should beat them up or, do any of the horrible things that did happen to gay people years ago, but I'm just not going to participate in your delusion. It is a delusion. And certainly to teach children to believe the opposite of what their lying eyes are telling them, we can't do that. We can't do that.
Yeah, and let me say this. So I think Mark and Ethan may not know this, but in these chats, I'm reading the chats, And I got them started. I'm going to get to them. We'll do a lightning round at some point before we end this discussion to answer these questions that people are mentioning. But I do want to talk about what I think, and what I mentioned this to Ethan, who's on here as well, The Right Show in Great Britain. Go check him out. His channel is awesome.
Hi, Ethan.
And go check out. Well, no, I'm not sure where Mark is located, but he's typically on our live streams. But he's also awesome. But I said in that show that, and this isn't from me, I got it from someone else, like maybe Ben Shapiro or someone else. If you're born with a sperm, then you're a man. If you're born with ovaries, then you are a female. And from what I understand, no one in history that we know of it's been that way. You know what I'm saying? That there's people with different parts, whatever. But when it comes down to sperm and egg, it's pretty much 100% just about
cut and dried.
I think, and if there's an exception there, well then and Matt Walsh, by the way, let's talk about him a little bit. When they were talking about it in the, and he was on, I guess he's on Dr. Phil.
Oh right, yeah, I saw.
I think that's where he really made his name because he really blew that person apart, and it was that part when the person didn't have anything to say after he was done with it. I'm not sure if you brought up the point about the minute percentage of people who are I'm not sure what it's called.
Oh, I didn't mention it, but you're right. Let's mention that. It's 0.0 something, isn't it? The number of people.
Yeah, it's very low. But just like abortion, they choose the 0.1% of something to justify 99%, and I think that's very disingenuous and it's horrible. As far as abortion is concerned, not as far as this is concerned, I think this is just something that they're just confused about and trying to use it for talking points. Let's get to some questions here, and I brought this up before. Mark Jackson says, "It's a pain." Here's an example. She volunteers a trauma. I'm not sure what he's saying here. Oh, I think maybe
he's probably talking about someone he knows.
Okay. This is the first one that came up, so I'm gonna go with this first. She volunteers as a trauma nurse in Cook County Hospital. A transgender man, now a woman, comes in shot. My wife gave him the proper medications for his weight and male gender to save him. When he found out, so convinced he was a woman, he tried to attack her.
Wow. I know what he's saying. He's saying that when they told the patient that they were treating him as a man, the patient attacked them for violating his idea of who he was. But that's a perfect scenario. A man that's at a particular weight and he has to get medication, things like drips, and we call them drips. So that's emergency IV medication. It's based on your weight and sometimes your gender. Okay.
That's really interesting. We remember that the video of the person that got really offended when the guy kept calling her ma'am in the store. That it came out a few years ago. It went viral, and
that was kind of funny, actually.
I mean, he was really angry, really angry. So Mark says hello. Hey, Mark.
Hi, Mark.
And Mark says here that I guess that was his wife here, gave the proper scientific doses
based on a male weight, probably.
Yeah. Filed a complaint and caused her a lot of problems.
Maybe she should have just let him die. Is that what you're saying? I mean, it doesn't make any sense. And I just say I understand his wife's position because this was even so in 2016 when I was working at Rikers, we were talking about. So that's a whole nother thing about women and men in jail. But we were talking about somebody coming in that identifies as a woman, and we have to, even if they have male genitalia, we have to call them a woman. And by the way, there was one at Rikers. I can't even say his name because, of course, that'd be violation of HIPAA. But he was such a trouble causer, and they allowed him to wear a weave and to have these gold slippers because if not, he made such a fuss and called up all kinds of authorities and was fighting everybody. So they just kept giving him what he wanted. And he was really horrible. I mean, I watched him kick out a window of the part where the officer sits. And he didn't even get any punishment because he was trans. But what really got me angry was that New Jersey prison where a man that identifies as a woman got 2 women pregnant. Because the thing is, and anybody that's in law enforcement knows this, what goes on in jail is not the same as in the street. So we don't know how those women ended up pregnant. They could have been forced. They could have been manipulated. It could have been a trade for drugs. The sex. I mean, there's a whole different marketplace in a jail that doesn't go on. And they are endangering women by putting someone that can rape them on their cell block. Because they might have even raped her and said, if you say I raped you, I'm going to kill you. So they have to say that it was,
Consensual.
consensual sex.
Yeah.
Or another thing is the prostitution angle. There's a million different things. And by putting someone with a penis in a cell block with women, you are endangering the women, and you're adding, you're providing you're providing something that crimes can be perpetuated. A situation where crimes can be perpetuated.
Wow, Jackie. I mean, how long did you work at Rikers Island?
I worked here for 3 years, but I worked in other prisons as well. And you have to understand the prison economy, because that $20,000 is, that's an asset. The thing
Sure.
that Dave Chappelle called $20,000, that is an asset in the prison. So, but it's also a vulnerability.
We got to get you back on the show talking about some things regarding prison, how that works. But that's just open the whole nother door of how this whole thing is very detrimental. Mental health notwithstanding. This is Ethan. He says, I don't understand LGBT. What part of being different to the rest of society groups gay people and transgender people? Or what apart from different? I don't, what do you think?
I think that I'm not sure what he's saying, except like, why are they different?
Like, what's the differentiating factor?
Well, I would say that they think that they've been trampled for so long and held down, much like some other minority groups, that they deserve special treatment now. And I guess, transgender people want that recognition. And if they're like Chastity and they actually have the surgery, then I guess she's a man now. Okay, fine. But I think that they should look at long-term. There are no long-term studies about these people that transition. I've seen a few people that regretted it and they made videos. There was one that was on Ben Shapiro, and there was another one with a different name I just saw the other day. So what is the long-term happiness rate for people that transition to another sex? I'd like to see some studies. And then if you want to talk about children being given puberty blockers, that is so devastating. There's a female author that was on Rogan. She was on Jordan Peterson. Everyone's had her. I forget what her name is, but she wrote a kind of a famous book. First of all, we all know that with teenagers, ideas are contagious. So that's why they worry about suicide. And this whole thing with not identifying with your biological sex, right now that's spreading like wildfire. But there was a show, which I didn't watch, but when I worked at a counseling center, and one of the other counselors watched it, and the girl's name was Jasmine, and maybe some of the listeners saw the show. So they gave Jasmine puberty blockers. It was a little boy that thought he was a girl named Jasmine. They gave him puberty blockers, and what happened was, I'm not sure if I can say this, but I'm speaking medically.
Go ahead.
It stunted the growth of his organ, so there wasn't enough there to turn it into a vagina. Like, it just wrecked him. He couldn't be a boy, and it couldn't be a man, and he couldn't be a woman. It just wrecked his parts. And I think you're playing with fire when you're going to take a small child and do something to their body that's irreversible. We say now that they don't even think like criminals should be charged till they're 21 because their brain hasn't fully developed, but you're going to let them do something to their body that's irrevocable. That doesn't make sense to me.
And that's the key, irrevocable to be. That's the key, right? If you can't reverse it, needs to be something very, very serious. Growing up, you couldn't get a tattoo unless you had all kind of permission from your parents. I guess you had to be 18, I believe. But now they're to do something way worse than a tattoo in terms of long-term, effects, and they'll let them do it.
And another point that Bill Maher brought up, which probably people heard because it was clipped and shown by a lot of conservative talk shows, when he said, if it's just happening naturally, why is there so much more in New York City and California and not in Ohio or Wisconsin? Because I don't believe it's happening naturally. I think people in a certain group, which I would say like a limousine liberal, they think that's a badge of honor to have a trans child or a pansexual child or any of those things. I think they encourage it and they lead it on. If anybody remembers that Disney clip, that inside meeting with the Disney staff, and the mother said, I'm the mother of a trans child and a gay child or something. And I was like, what are the odds of one person having two children that are struggling with their sexuality? And there's like that, she's egging that on. she is totally egging that on. And in my heart, I just know it.
Yeah, I wouldn't disagree with that at all. Ethan says here, the exceptions are so unbelievably rare that it shouldn't change our perception of biological sex. I 100% agree. I mean,
why are we changing everything around for the percentage of people that have this idea that they're not the sex that they're born with? And, this is another point that really gets to me, which is this is where I want to see Matt Walsh's show, because when Caitlyn Jenner transitioned and everybody was like, she's so magnificent, I said, what about the men that transition, but they still just want to wear like jeans and a flannel shirt and they like going to Home Depot? No one applauds them. Like, it's only when they want to get dressed up and they want to wear like Kardashian like stuff. There's a lot of women that, so is it that you want to be a woman, or is it that you want to wear attention seeking pretty clothes and shoes and jewelry and hairstyles? Because all that, there's a lot of real women that really don't enjoy that, except for maybe, 4 or 5 times a year to get that dressed up. That is a lot of work to do all that all the time.
I'm going to mention something, but I don't want you to, I don't want you guys leaving the chat, but I'm going to mention the Johnny Depp trial only because I think there's an attack on men. And I'm going to quickly segue, because I want you guys jumping off of this. In the 90s, we saw a lot of effeminate black men on TV shows, whatever. It was like RuPaul in particular, and that's one example, many others. And it was like almost as if they didn't want the masculine black men, the hardcore, not to say gangbanging, but that's kind of a negative term, but just the hard, assertive, deep voice.
Like Bernie Mac. Bernie Mac was a very male.
Exactly. Just those kind of guys. This guy's name, House Party, the dad on House Party, that guy. But anyway, because it seemed like, and we were back then, I was a Democrat, I thought everyone was racist, so I thought it was because they want the black man to be less of a threat to them. But I think maybe it was they wanted men to be less of a threat to them in general, and that was just an example for black men. It may have been going on other people that I didn't realize, because going after Johnny Depp the way they are now and saying that, and then the attacks on him and all over the place with men in general, I'm just thinking, you know what? And the gay men for the parade now, it's just men in general. It sounds like.
How about this? And I'm a woman, but I'm offended by how men are portrayed in every TV commercial, every TV show. That's like, they're hapless dad. He can't cook dinner.
Goofy,
oh my gosh, he can't do the laundry. Oh, he can't watch the kids. Oh, he's just like a big goofball that doesn't even know what he's doing, and the wife has to tell him everything.
Like the show Daario.
Is so disrespectful to men, number one. And I don't want to have another child and to make it like the man is the wife's a fifth child she has to watch or something. Men, there's plenty of men that know how to cook dinner, how to put the kids to bed, how they can manage it fine when their wife is working. And it's an insult to men to treat them like they're idiots.
Yes. It reminds me of the dad on Daario. I'm going to pull him up real quick here. If you remember this guy. He was a total ditz. If I can bring him up real quick here.
What show are you talking about?
Daario, MTV.
Oh, yeah, I don't watch that. Oh, that cartoon. Yeah.
I mean, he was a total, and this was back in the 90s, and this guy was a total ditz. I'm like, why is he making the father just a total moron? And
they always do that.
It's that kind of person that they kept showing over and over again, like you were saying. So
they are. I think that people do regret transition, and I'd like to see a lot more. I think places like Sweden and Denmark were doing transition surgery before us, but I'd really like to see some studies on where they are in 20 years. And, people say that people that are transsexual, well, they have a high suicide rate because of society. It isn't because of society. It's because many times, you're right, I don't know, they're just lumping them all together. This comment about why are trans and gay people part of the same group? I don't know. It's because of LGBTQ plus sign, minus sign. Like, everyone's lumping them, and I think transgender are jumping on the LGBT bandwagon. But if I was maybe especially a gay man, I'd be like, hold up, we're not the same thing. Well,
the David Chappelle show, not the recent one, but the one before that, he actually had the scenario when they're driving the car and you had,
that's hilarious.
Yeah, you know what I'm talking about? He's talking about that, and that really pissed a lot of people off. But I think
he's right. A lot of gay men and women do not like this trans stuff, and they don't want it to be part of their whole group. They don't want them all be lumped together. I don't know why they're lumped together.
let's talk about Blair White a little bit, because Blair White is a really a conservative. Actually, she said she votes Republican all the time. She had Alex Jones on her podcast last night, and so you would think someone like her would be accepted by everybody, but she's being canceled by her own, I guess her own people. So
why? Because she's conservative?
Well, she's speaking out against it. Sort of like your girl who wrote the books Harry Potter. I mean, they're treating her like they're treating her like the plague.
Yeah, they really tried to destroy her, and they did some things celebrating Harry Potter, like I think it was anniversary of the movies, and they didn't even invite her.
They didn't invite her. Hey, Ethan, if you
but
can
she
talk
feels
about
the same way I do. Why do you have to take away from me to make your point? Why do women, young girls who've worked for years for their sports, their skills, and now they're just completely supplanted by someone with more muscle mass, that's bigger, that's stronger. Men carry, actually they have a higher hemoglobin, so they can carry oxygen better than females. And now all of a sudden they're just knocking these women out. And it isn't fair. It isn't fair at all.
It's not. Ethan, if you can, I know you're in the UK, and I think the author of, I can't think of her name, J.K.
Rowling.
Right. Okay. If you know anything about that, being over there, about what your thoughts on that, Ethan, I've never asked you about her, but chime in if you like. But let's ask some more questions here and see what we have in terms of comments. I have a couple here. I want to say hi, Sunshine Happy Lady. Didn't get a chance to say hi earlier. Welcome aboard if you're still around. And Mark says this. He says, "It's not happening naturally." Jax agreed. How did the brothers that did the Matrix switch to girls at the same time if it isn't twisted culture? Good question.
What brothers that did the Matrix?
I forget their names, but they supposedly transitioned.
But why are they called Matrix?
The movie, The Matrix. Keanu Reeves and what is the guy's name? I don't know. Well, the point is, I mean, let's say it doesn't have to be applicable to this context. Just say two brothers in general transition at the same time. What you're saying is it has to be cultural, right? Because just like you said before, in California and New York and where these places where it's not happening in Kansas as much, or it's not happening in
let's go to Africa and see how many.
Oh, forget that.
I always say, let's see who has anorexia in Africa. Let's see who's cutting themselves in Africa. Let's see who wants to transition.
Well, I'll tell you one thing about Africans. They are very one of the reasons why they had such a high AIDS epidemic in Africa during the 90s, because the men refused to wear condoms. They thought that it was unmanly to do so. So I'll let you. That's
a whole other argument that we have to talk about.
Yeah, I'll let you.
Actually connects to the high abortion rate is women that tolerate, because I've interviewed plenty of women doing their health assessment and said, and they'll say, like, I had 3 abortions, and I'll be like, well, he doesn't like condoms. My man, he won't wear a condom. And they're like, what are you gonna do? And I just want to slap the crap out of them and say, do you understand? Because here's the thing, and this is just a quick sidebar. I was just talking about this the other day. I could do a whole video about abortion, because I marched for pro-choice 3 times in Washington. And now I have a whole nother viewpoint on that. But you're just letting men play you in a different way. It has nothing to do with your rights. Why are you having unprotected sex willy-nilly? Then you have to get an operation on your body that could harm your fertility for the rest of your life. So it's not just like, oh, what am I going to do? Whoopsie, we'll have an abortion. And once again, women are putting themselves not third, not first. And that's women that aren't even married, or it's not even in a relationship. It's just some dude. The guys that wrote The Matrix. Okay, now that is crazy. That doesn't make any sense.
Great spelling, Mark. I never got that. And
we both transitioned from men to women at the exact same time.
Wow.
And did it stick, or they got regrets?
See, you got to appreciate Mark's subtlety. He says natural, right? It's so clever. He's so clever. Wow. Awesome. Get it? Natural. Never mind. J.K. Rowling has some base views that are for sure not afraid to speak out against the madness. Yeah. I might read her books now. I was against the Harry Potter because of the other reasons before. I wasn't digging the whole witchcraft stuff, but I'll have a lot of respect for anyone who can stand up against the mob. I really do.
So do I. Because they did try to really crucify her.
They did.
So to speak.
He said natural, but I think it was better natural, Mark. I think it's better. It's a pun on the word all natural, if you know what I'm talking about.
You might be smarter than me and Mark because I didn't even think of that all natural.
Maybe I got twisted mind.
Yeah, there you go. That doesn't make any sense. That and it is epidemic and it is certainly contagious. And here's the other thing too. Even when you talk about young children, what makes you a boy or a girl? Like I thought about that. I at this point, especially at this point, like I never really loved to get dressed up or wear high heels or do my hair. Does that mean that I should have transitioned? Like, who decides what makes you a boy or a girl? I was a total tomboy.
Yeah.
Growing up, and I never thought that I wasn't a girl because of that. Like, what makes these children think they're the opposite sex? Now, we know a lot of parental environment. I mean, parental pressure changes that. But it doesn't make any sense. Like, who defines what that is? If I had a little girl and she wanted to play with trucks and she liked to get dirty and every stick she found, she turned into a gun. You mean, like, why does she have to change anything? You could be a girl and do that. It's a little bit more difficult for boys, but there are boys that don't like to play outside. They'd rather play like house inside. Let them do it. Kids, the gender roles, until you're sexually active, which hopefully is far, far in their future, there's no reason to pigeonhole yourself like that. Just be whatever you want to be and act the way you want to act, and you'll figure it out when you get older. Like, what makes you feel like you're not a girl? If you're not talking about who you're sexually attracted to, what does it matter? That's what I'm saying. What does it matter?
This is going to be very anecdotal, but I'm going to give a perfect example of to back up what you just said. If I name this person, I'll be bad. So I'm going to try and be, I'm not going to name the person out, of course. But it's a buddy in college, real close friend of mine, and very effeminate, sung in the gospel choir at my school, which most men at the gospel choir were gay, unfortunately. Well, I mean, that's what they were. It was gospel choir. You'd think they wouldn't be. But they were. And he didn't play sports too much. Didn't do it. He watched Golden Girls, whatever. But he was a hoe when it came to women. Didn't any parts of men. But it didn't. But if someone had told him differently, who knows? Well, okay, because you sing very well, or because you don't play sports, or because you watch Golden Girls, or because you have these tendencies like to cook and giggle all the time, which you did. And he was really, really weird, in that kind of way. But he's married now. He's been married for 30 years now. Kids, And so it's like, what I'm saying? So, and that's anecdotal, but at the same time, it just shows that, like you said, it doesn't let people be who they are. You can't pigeonhole someone. And I remember tomboys was a thing at one point. It was never a question that they weren't a woman or a girl. They just like to play football.
If you belong to an evangelical or a Christian church, you're going to meet a lot of men that if it was not within that environment, you'd be like, oh, they got to be gay. Do you know what I mean? But maybe they do have a softer voice. Maybe they are theatrical. But they have a wife or they have a girlfriend and you're watching them get married. So who are we to judge? If that's what that's what they are, that's what they are. I mean, maybe just because you do have a soft-spoken voice and you like to be in shows, maybe you're just a different kind of a man than we're used to. But you're still a man, a straight man.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah. Raisha, what's really going to cook your noodle is these people are pro-baby murder, but against the death penalty. Figure that.
Well, you know what they would say? They'd say that it's a clump of cells.
Right. But if you have an eagle, those eggs, let's take one of those eggs of the eagle and crack it open and see what happens when you go to court.
It's a clump of cells. What's the problem? I scrambled it.
Yep. Interesting. Babies who haven't had the chance to commit wrong have less moral value than the mass murder. Ethan is a sharp dude. You got to check him out on Instagram. He's got a YouTube channel too. He's got some viral videos that hit like 500,000 views, over 500,000 views. He's done some good stuff. So
gold, Jerry, gold.
He's a young kid. He's like in high school. Super sharp, super duper sharp.
And he's from the UK.
He's in near London, I think he said.
Also, I would like to say that I'm true to my beliefs because I'm against the death penalty. I have to say I don't believe in it. Especially in this country because we screw up things a lot. There's a lot of people that get out of jail. So there's not a chance in hell that I could ever vote to put somebody to death. Never, never, never.
I'm not against it in principle, but I'm with you. We got to make sure we're right about it. And I'm not sure
we're
now.
Never right. No, that's right. Jordan Peterson is right. There are feminine boys and masculine boys. So what's the big difference? And there are girls that are really, I don't want to say butch because that sounds like I'm saying they're lesbians. They're just more masculine or they don't like to wear clothes. And I mean, have you ever put a girdle on? Have you ever worn a pair of high heels? It's not pleasant. And why don't we celebrate women or men that transition? If they transition to what like we call the Home Depot lesbian, nobody claps for that, and they don't get any magazine profile, and they don't got to be on the front page of anything. If they just like to wear flannel shirts and boots, nobody wants to talk about that.
Chewing tobacco.
Yeah, I mean maybe. Who gets to judge what a man or a woman is? Matter of fact, you don't see Chaz Bono too often, do you? She's got a beard and a penis. Sonny and Cher was her daughter. Now she's a man. Chastity Bono. That was one of the first kind of famous people that transitioned.
I wonder about that.
Yeah, Chastity. She has a beard now.
I didn't know they had a kid, those two. And
it was funny when they'd bring the little girl on the show, and she'd always have the poofiest dress and the fussiest hairdo and, makeup and then see, this is what happens when you do that to little girls and you try to get them into all that fancy clothing and hairdos and all that. She said, the heck with this, I'm going to be a boy.
You see that right there?
Yeah.
He's a rock star.
If I could tolerate TikTok, I'm going to have to look at it. I'm going to have to dabble into TikTok because I do have an account, but I get mad at China and I stop using it sometimes.
You pushed me to get on that a while back last year, I think. He's like, you got to get on. There's so many black conservatives. Got to get on. You got to get on. And I did have an account at one point. I think I still have it. I'm not sure if it's active, but I didn't. I saw so many bootylicious stuff on there that I couldn't.
Well, you know what? It just so happens. I don't know how this happened, but when I got on TikTok, I don't know how, but I hit like a pocket of conservative patriots, and then I hit a bigger pocket of black conservative patriots. And I didn't know that TikTok was going to be like that. I thought it was all the kids dancing. And, liberals of TikTok, if you've seen any of those videos.
I have seen some of those.
They make very funny videos with Ben Shapiro where he's forced to watch, people with purple hair and with just talking complete nonsense. I don't need to be aggravated like that. Just putting the news on is aggravating enough. Just the existence of certain people in Washington, knowing that they're still alive, gets me aggravated if I stop and think about it.
Yeah, Callie Fontanalia has some really good TikTok videos. She did one on Kwanzaa that I'm gonna do a whole video about when we get near to Christmas. She's so awesome. She's really good on TikTok, but I don't know. What do you think? Should we get on it? What do you think?
I think you should get on. I think the conservative take should be on it because I think you'd probably get more followers. And like I told you, there's a whole section of TikTokers that are super conservative. You're right. Imagine the mentality to say that it's okay to murder babies. But see, that's Mark right there. They won't admit it's a baby. And there was a picture floating around on Facebook in the past month of a 20-week-old. They said it was a fetus, but it was a baby. It was a baby. It wasn't a clump of cells. And I think that's really what changed me from being so pro-choice when I started having friends that would hold a picture up of their ultrasound at like 12 weeks. And they'd have it like their other kid holding up going, I'm going to be a big brother. And the ultrasound would be there, 12 weeks. So why is it a baby for that family, but for this other person, it's a clump of cells? So like Ben Shapiro says, science is science. decision to decide whether that's a baby or a clump of cells is not whether you want it or not. That's not how science works. Much like your sex, your genitalia dictates your gender. That's how science works.
Me and Kira had a video on abortion, on the pro-life, on the pro-choice Roe v. Wade, and we talked about that, about your choice shouldn't determine. And I showed a video from Apologia Ministries, Jeff Durbin, how he debates these people on the street, and he just tears them apart. And he just uses just logic. And eventually they have to either flee or call a name and then flee. So, but he's really good about that. And he pins them to a corner where they really can't argue their way out of it. So it's to me, it's an unattainable argument when it comes to abortion.
I'll tell you what the difference is. So when I was pro-choice, it was all about emotions. And I'm telling you, I could feel angry at the idea of somebody trying to tell me that I had to have a baby. But I didn't think, I wasn't mature enough to understand. You made that decision. I made that decision when I had unprotected sex. That's where I had my power. So you can't kill a baby because it's inconvenient for you. But once again, our science has advanced quite a bit in the last 25 years to really show us that, how quickly the clump of cells becomes an actual baby.
Yeah. I look at baby.
On TikTok? Can you put that comment back up for a second?
Sure. I'm sorry. Yeah.
Yeah, I know, right? I never had anything I don't really post that much. I've seen a lot of stuff on there. I don't know what what gets censored, because I only see uncensored stuff right on there. But Kyle, you would be really surprised at the conservatives on there. I kind of almost think it feels like to me, because of who I follow, that it's almost, conservatives have grabbed hold of TikTok.
I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to put it on my tablet, which I never use. And it's not hooked up to my cell service. It's just my Wi-Fi hooked to a VPN. So I can probably get away with that.
There you go.
Just because really they're really into your data. So if it's on tablet I'm not using, maybe that's a good way to mitigate. But it's right now, you can't ignore TikTok anymore. You really just can't do it. So.
I know, but we know, it's not good. Even China regulates how many hours the kids can stay on that TikTok.
China regulates their own kids. Wow.
But we don't. They're laughing all the way to the bank.
Yep.
What did Mark say? Yes, you can't jump off a building and just decide I'm not going to write. So what happens is women, especially young women, they look at abortion very emotionally. And when people like Ben Shapiro or the gentleman you mentioned start giving them facts, it blows it out of the water, because your emotions really aren't part of this. You know what? I'll tell you what, the first time I knew I might be wrong about being pro-choice was a Law and Order, and it wasn't about abortion, but on it, the guy that played the DA said, there's really nothing in the Constitution about Roe v. Wade. And because he said that, I was like, really? And then I started looking into it. And of course, as we all know, there is nothing in the Constitution that would say that we have the right to have an abortion.
If anything, it would be after Dred Scott. Dred Scott would actually agree with abortion. However, the 13th and 14th and 15th Amendment, that would eventually be on the behest of the unborn child, where Dred Scott would say, go ahead and kill them, just like you can enslave them because they're not a person. 13, 14, and 15 said the opposite. So, yeah, so at this point in time, Roe versus Wade never should have been implemented. It should have been. It should have never been a decision. And the whole thing was really political to begin with. If you research the whole case, it was lobbied, it was politicized, it barely passed. And so,
but the Supreme Court is not supposed to be influenced by what's going on in the country.
Correct. Yep. And it's just a whole nother thing there. And the whole thing we mentioned about Roe, the woman, Norma, I think Norma Ray, her name is.
Norma something, not Norma Ray. That was Sally Field.
Yeah, that was Sally Field.
It is Norma. It is Norma.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, you really like me. Remember that in the Oscars? Anyway,
you really
sidebar.
like me.
You really like me. No, but no. She basically she had the baby. She wasn't raped. It was set up just they needed a front man, in this case, a front woman, to push the case, and the whole thing was a facade. But I'm getting ahead of myself.
Well, I'm going to expose a truth bomb on your show here tonight. I've never said this publicly before. In 1990, I was a member of National Organization for Women, an active member, went to all the meetings. And I lived in Pennsylvania at the time. And there was a Pennsylvania law coming up that would have influenced abortion. And of course, it would have restricted it. And the chapter that I belonged to, the president of the local chapter, asked me to speak. Very exciting, on the steps of the Montgomery County Courthouse. And I was really excited. I had my little cards. And she goes, but you have to say, and I did work in a hospital. I won't say what hospital. She said, you have to say that women are being brought to the emergency room right now with botched abortions. And I said, but that's not true. And she goes, yeah, no, but you got to say it. You got to say it part of your speech. I was a naive person. I was like, why would I say that? And plus, I was thinking, I'll get in so much trouble from the hospital if I say that lie. Plus, it was a bold-faced lie. And so I gave the speech. I did not say the lie. And somehow the National Organization for Women chapter didn't like me so much after that. But I couldn't believe that they wanted me to lie like that. I couldn't believe it. I mean, now I'm a little bit older and a little bit wiser. And I think, of course, people do that all the time just to be inflammatory. But I was totally shocked. Totally shocked. That should have been a good clue for me.
That kind of stuff really opens your eyes, that's for sure. And as you're young, you're so impressionable that it took a lot of courage for you not to say it, actually. It took a lot of courage for you to do that.
I wasn't going to lie.
We have about 8 minutes before the show starts. So I'm going to cut this off about 2 minutes prior to 8. So we have about 6 minutes left. I posted a debate between a black conservative and 2 black liberals. It was taken down for hate speech.
Anything you say that I disagree with, hate speech.
Oh, it was reinstated. That's good. It was reinstated. That's awesome. I read the second part. Come on, man. That's ridiculous. Every one of these comments, Jackie, is an hour long or 30-minute video. Easy.
You know what? I can't believe the hour flew. Yeah, Mark, I know. I wasn't in it. Yeah, I know. I gotta rethink it.
I'm torn. I probably won't do it only because, but if Ethan can give me 2 million views, I'm just kidding.
Well, some people do repost TikToks on like Instagram, right, or other.
Right. I repost Callie's all the time.
I can't believe the hour went so fast, because when we started, I was like, yeah, I know. I didn't vote for Obama the first time, but I voted for him the second time because I couldn't tolerate Mitt Romney. But we all make mistakes, right? We have to forgive each other. I can't believe how fast this hour went. I honestly thought when we started, like, I hope we can fill it.
Look, I voted for Bush, I voted for Romney and McCain. In fact, I got cussed out. I got cussed out in the hood by some black woman as I was leaving Elizabeth's Pizza on Summit Avenue in the hood in Greensboro, and just trying to get my food, go back to my desk at work, and live my life. But I had a McCain sticker on the back. How dare you get me? And now, basically, what I did, Jackie, I cussed her out. I cussed right back. I was like,
can you imagine if I cussed her back?
I got in her grill, and the people with me, coworkers of mine, they were like, okay, this is a different Kyle that we didn't realize, because I was the president of the local chapter of Young Republicans, and I was already not militant, but pretty much hardcore. And it's like, whatever, dude. So I'll stop there. I'm glad I never went to the leftist phase. Yeah, you're fortunate, dude. Ethan's such a sharp dude, man. Let's see, we got like 2 minutes left, guys.
I have to start on my 5-year-old's OnlyFans. I want to start a platform called where you learn how to knit, how to quilt. It's called Only Grands. What do you think?
Oh, I'll say this real quickly. You know that chick that the knitting crew? She's now famous now.
Yeah.
She got alienated because, you know what I'm talking about? Kate or
no, Carlin.
Yeah,
I know who you're talking about.
Bonesco, I think.
See you later, Mark.
Carly Bonesco, I believe her name is.
Yeah.
So you want to do that, Jackie? A knitting?
No, I didn't go through that. Well, actually, I did knit back in when I was younger, but I went through that liberal phase. Well, it wasn't really a phase. I think the world has changed. I'm not like rampant far right. I'm not as far right as you and your wife, but I think that the left is so left,
Right.
what would be considered in the middle now is considered right.
That's right. So I'm gonna give you the last word, Jackie, because I want to give people a chance to get over to dailywire.com. And if you haven't subscribed yet to that channel, go and do it. I'm gonna do a movie review after the movie's over. So the movie review should drop, I'm hoping 11 o'clock maybe tonight.
I think that we should let everybody come back on and make their comments. I'll come back on and make comments after I see it. The last word is, I definitely know I'm a woman. I don't have any trouble figuring that out. And I don't know, we're waiting for Candace Owens documentary to drop. I don't know what happens.
Oh my gosh, I can't wait.
That's the next exciting thing that I think is going to be fantastic.
Yeah, I can't wait for that.
All right.
Okay. All right, everybody. Thank you so much for coming on. And one last thing. Do you want to come back for maybe 10 minutes afterward? I'll set up in their live stream real quick, or do you want to just talk offline? What do you want to do?
Let's talk offline.
Okay. Yeah. All right. Well, cool.
I gotta take my Hollywood off and get ready for bed.
Okay. All right, everybody. Have a great evening. Hope you enjoy the movie, and see you when after that comes back. Take care.
All right. Thanks, guys.